Hello everyone, it's Mr. Wolfe here, and in this video I'm going to be going over carbohydrates. So remember, you only need to really write down what's in blue. The rest, like this, is just helpful context that you don't need to memorize, all right? But the word carbohydrate, why is it called that? Well, the elements that make it up are a 1-to-1 ratio of carbon, hydrogen, so there's twice as many hydrogen as carbon, and then the same amount of oxygen as there is carbon, all right? So then the chemical formula of glucose is C6H12, so double the amount of hydrogen, and then again, the same amount of oxygen as carbon. Now, if I look at the simple ratio, all right, carbo, so carbon right there, and then hydrate. Well, if you look at this, H, there's 2 hydrogen for every 1 oxygen, so H2O, so carbohydrate. That's where it gets the name. Now, let's actually get into what are foods high in carbohydrates, all right? Examples would be bread, all right, fruit, veggies, soda, oatmeal. All of those are very, very high in carbohydrates. So what functions does a carbohydrate have in a living organism? All right. The first one is immediate energy. All right. And I always like to use this video as an example. All right. Where here is a 3-year-old kid probably that has had cotton candy for the first time. Right. And that energy is immediate. Right? It is immediate how she is reacting to that sugar right away. So when you think of sugar, think of carbohydrates, think of immediate energy. All right. Now, there's another purpose, right? And that's going to be energy storage in both animals and in plants. So for you, think exercise. When you're exercising, right, especially for a while, your body needs an extra store of energy to keep on going. And so it has these carbohydrate stores in your muscles and in other organs of your body. Plants do the same thing, where they're doing photosynthesis, they make glucose, they're using it for energy, they're using it to grow the plant, and then they're like, hey, we got some extra energy level, let's store it underground for later. So that's a carrot, for instance, is an example of a plant storing that energy for later, but then we store that energy. All right, so carbohydrates, right? Remember, all biomolecules have monomers, and those monomers link together to make a polymer. So what is the monomer of a carbohydrate? It is a monosaccharide, which might seem like, wow, a really difficult word to remember. But remember, mono means one, and saccharide is just like a Latin fancy name for sugar. So monosaccharide literally means just one sugar, monosaccharide. Now, the big example that we're going to use, there are multiple types of monosaccharides, but the one that we are going to talk about 99% in this course is going to be glucose. Right? So glucose is an example of a monomer carbohydrate. It is an example of a monosaccharide. Right? And when you had any carbohydrate for breakfast, whether it was an apple, bread, broccoli, or chocolate for a meal, right? Even though those are all different and at different levels of healthiness, when they are broken down by your mouth, your stomach, absorbed in your intestines, right, they end up all as the same thing in your bloodstream as glucose. So the glucose that's going through your blood right now, your blood sugar, right, all came from the carbohydrates that you ate earlier today. All right. So then remember, we're going to have this glucose molecule, and that glucose molecule, this monomer is going to chain together to make a polymer, a larger molecule. And the word for the polymer for our carbohydrate is called a polysaccharide. Remember, poly means multiple, saccharide means sugar, so polysaccharide means multiple sugars. Okay? And so we could have, so here's a bunch of glucose molecules chained together. Right? And then here are 3 different types of really important molecules that are actually all made up of glucose. All right, so all these hexagons you see here, these are all glucose molecules. What's the difference between them? Notice how they're bonded together differently. So starch is bonded this way. Cellulose is bonded this way, where the oxygen's kind of, or the OH is a little bit up here. But anyways, they're bonded together differently. Glycogen's obviously bonded together differently, and that's going to give them different properties and therefore functions. So let's talk about the first example of a polymer. Let's talk about glycogen. All right. So glycogen is an energy storage molecule only in animals. So you're not going to find this in broccoli or the Brussels sprouts you eat or a carrot. It's only in animals. All right. It's the energy storage molecule. So if you are playing basketball, within minutes, you are depleting all your glucose stores that are in your muscle cells. But obviously, you are able to play basketball or any sport or exercise for more than just a few minutes. So what's going on? Your muscles have, this is this little dot right here or this little dot right here, that's a glucose molecule. You have these giant chains of glycogen in your muscles that when you exercise, your muscles start breaking those down so your body could use that glucose for energy and keep on going. All right. Now, starch, all right, is going to be another example of a polysaccharide. But if glycogen is energy storage in animals, starch is energy storage in plants. So when you eat a potato, you are eating the starch in that potato. You are eating the energy storage polysaccharide, energy storage carbohydrate in that potato. Same thing with corn. All right. So then there's one other type of important polymer carbohydrate we want to talk about, one more important polysaccharide, and that is going to be cellulose. So if you are writing this down on paper, you are writing on cellulose. Cellulose, again, is just made up of glucose, but it's just chained together in a specific way. All right? It is the structure molecule of plants. So whether you are touching a leaf, bark, roots, whatever it is, the cell walls of a plant are made up of cellulose, that polysaccharide, that polymer. And those cell walls make up the cells that make up the structure of the plant. So plants are primarily, at least structurally wise, made up of cellulose, which again is just a chain of glucose molecules. All right, so that concludes it for carbohydrates.